to show you.
Hell yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Horse Syndicate Discourse, and we're going to try to jump right in this because we are running a bit late tonight. We are doing a show on, as you might have seen, The Howling from 1981, a beautiful werewolf film, probably the second best of all time. And I honestly don't think there are any questions on which movie, or werewolf movie, is the best werewolf movie of all time. Silver Bullet, right? Anyway, let's ask Nate. Nate, Silver Bullet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, we are doing The Howling, and before we really get started, Nathan did the cover art for the Scream Factory Blu-ray edition from what was that, 10, 11 years ago?
Yeah, 2012. I think it was probably my seventh cover, something like that. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like the cover. I'd watch that movie. Who said that?
Dante, yeah. He called Picture because he's old school. He's like, yeah, I'd watch that Picture.
Hell yeah. Oh, yeah, Picture, yes. Yeah, it's cool. I love it. I love the almost kind of the werewolf mountain there composition. It's really cool. You got a little bit of everything in there.
They gave me the list. They said they want Dee, they want Banks, they want Eddie, they want werewolves, they want the woods. And so I was like, all right, let me figure this out. And then because of this one, too, they gave me Dog Soldiers because people like the way I drew werewolves on this, I guess. So.
Well, yeah, and you did a great job. And the Dog Soldiers, whether or not I like that movie, doesn't matter. The cover looks fantastic. So check that out if you don't have a copy of. They released it on 4K too, but I think it doesn't have. I don't think it has Nate's art, which is a shame because I like it better than. I mean the bag art or whatever. Not bag. I always thought this was like a paper bag, like somebody's going grocery shopping.
I love this art. I love that poster though. The original.
Yeah, I do too, but like I do like yours quite a bit.
I think they were trying to downplay the werewolf thing because slashers were really popular at that time, and it almost even the trailer they downplayed werewolf, and because they just weren't in style at that time.
Yeah, kind of like what they did with the Killbots movie. What is that movie called? Chopping Mall.
Chopping Mall. Yeah, you don't see the robots or anything.
Yeah. But yeah, there is an alternate version I've seen of this with the werewolf's snout bursting through where the mouth is, which is pretty cool. But we're gonna start off with Nate's got a new segment that he's been doing, and it's pretty much recommendations of older movies. And if I'm not mistaken, this one's still from the silent era, right? So
yeah.
I've
been watching a lot of silent films.
Yeah, you got to see this. I had a theme for it, but I may have. I don't know where it is. So we're gonna keep going. So this one this week you got is Lon Chaney and the Unknown. Tell us a little bit about this one.
This is a 1927 film directed by Todd Browning, who everyone should know.
So right on the cusp.
Dracula, just a couple of years before Dracula. He did several films with Lon Chaney, The Unholy Three being another really good one. But this one is it's also, as you can see there, one of the early films of Joan Crawford, who became massive movie star.
This?
Yep.
Oh my God! She's Joan unrecognizable to me. Wow.
Mommy Dearest, no wire hangers, Joan Crawford. Yeah. But anyway, this is a really good. I mean, this movie was considered lost for a long time until it was discovered. A print was discovered in the '60s, and it's been thankfully saved and remastered. And you can watch it on YouTube, probably where it's in public. Everything from 1927 back as of this year is public domain, so anyone can release this movie now. But anyway, this is really one of my favorite Lon Chaney movies, and it may be my favorite Todd Browning movie. I was really blown away by it. By the way, with Joan Crawford, she said that it was watching Lon Chaney's dedication and hard work, because everyone knows how hard he worked. I mean, the guy was amazing. But she said watching him made her want to be a better actress, and it was like the first motivation of like really, taking this extremely seriously and putting in that kind of effort. And, paid off. She did. She became a big star. Originally, they wanted Greta Garbo to play the part. So I'll just jump right into the story. Basically, Lon Chaney is a criminal who is wanted by the law, and he is masquerading as a freak show attraction in a circus as
Is
an
that
armed
him?
man. Yeah. So he has no arms, so his act is that he throws knives and shoots a gun with his feet. And he's doing this at
Does he have feet?
Crawford. That's it. So Joan
There
Crawford
you
is tied up, like they would throw the knives at the girl, and he's throwing knives with his feet and shooting a gun at her. And but it turns out it's, of course, fake. He has arms. He just ties them down, and he's in love with Joan Crawford, as anyone would be here. And she has this fear and phobia, conveniently, of men's hands and arms on her. So she doesn't like this. So she feels safe around him because he has no arms and has no hands. And I think he takes that attraction as that it's more than just that. It's like that maybe she's into him, but he's definitely into her. Um, but there's a strong man, very handsome strong man who likes her too. This guy. Um, but she again gets really uncomfortable when he puts his hands on her or whatever gets close. So um, Cheney believes that he has a chance with her, and he's going to be with her. And then his dwarf, that's his friend, who warns him, like, man, like, how are you going to be with her? As soon as she finds out you have hands, she's going to know you've been lying and that you're. And then it gets worse because her father, who runs the circus, sees him as he is, sees him with arms, and he murders him. And she happens to witness the murder, but she doesn't see who. She just sees his father being strangled. So the thing that he has to hide, the reason he's hiding his arms is because he has a deformity on his hand. He has two thumbs. There's like thumbs sprouting out from his thumb. But she sees somebody with that deformity strangled her father. So now he can't expose his hands to her ever. So it's one of these things where he's in love, but he can't ever fulfill it. And that's all I'll say about the story. It goes further into that.
What's going on here? Who is it?
That's his buddy. That's like the
Okay.
dwarf. He dresses up like the devil. He knows his secret. He's the one that knows that he's hiding out from the police. Basically, kind of almost like a devil on his shoulder.
Yeah.
I think there was some artwork, also poster art, where he had a devil on his shoulder, and it's that guy.
It's that guy.
But the movie has a really great climax, and overall, it's kind of like the kind of stories you would get in an episode or an issue of Tales from the Crypt. Has those kind of twists and turns, and I guess irony. But it's really freaking good. Lon Chaney is one of his best performances, and you get to see anyone in the horror fandom. You're talking about Todd Browning and Lon Chaney together, and also throw in screen legend Joan Crawford, who before she was a screen legend. So,
very risque. Also, if you look at that outfit,
yeah, that's pre-code movies. So
yeah,
there's sexuality there. There's a lot of those movies. It's kind of shocking how sexual they were. I mean, so many of the plot lines that I've been watching a lot of silent films and pre-code films, and so many of the stories are about women who have to become basically prostitutes to survive on the streets, which is probably reality at the time, but they weren't making those movies once the code came.
Right.
But there were so many plots with that. I just watched one the other night with Janet Gaynor, where she her mother needed medicine, or she was going to die, so she's out there trying to find money and whatever she can do, and she sees streetwalkers, so she decides to try to do that and sell herself to get money for her mother's medicine, and that's how the movie begins. And it's like, man, there's so many movies I've seen have been like that with that time frame with that star women. but it was probably more honest than the movies that came after it. The Code.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's like you ever see Taxi Cab Confessions? When you said that, Streetwalker, it's the first thing that came to my mind. Hey, honey, you going out tonight?
But this movie is definitely worth your time. Again, it's on YouTube. It's probably on other places. I think it's like an hour and 10 minutes long, so it's not
Seems
a long
like a lot
film.
of the silent film era movies are between 60 and 70 minutes.
Yeah, some of them are real super long, like shockingly long.
Really?
I just bought one called Dr. Mabuse, The Gambler, which was directed by Fritz Lang, and it's almost 5 hours long. So sometimes they can be long. I've seen a lot of them at 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
Whew, that'd be an endurance competition for me. At least I try.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I used to be that way. Like silent films, I'd try to watch Phantom of the Opera or Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I'm like, I just can't get into this. But now, like, I think once you start seeing really, really great ones, and you kind of get used to it, it's kind of like, some people have trouble watching foreign films because at first the subtitles are so difficult to adjust to because you're not used to it. But after a while, it's like I won't watch anything dubbed. I have to watch subtitles. I just can't stand not hearing the actual actors.
I think it's okay to watch Italian zombie movies dubbed, though.
It's kind of part of the Italians. The Italian thing is really they were saying something about the Howling. Joe Dante. They said when they would show movies in Italy, they would turn the dialogue up really high, the dubbing. Because Italians like hearing the dialogue a lot or whatever, and they turn down all the sound design. So like when American filmmakers would see the Italian redubbing versions of the movies, they would be horrified because they sounded like shit. But the Italians loved it. So the dialogue is just really amplified while everything else is pulled down. So it got to where some filmmakers would start doing the dubbing here so they could preserve their movies.
Wow.
So it wouldn't get ruined. Yeah. But yeah, the Italians, it's almost like watching those Giallo films. Part of the charm, I think, is kind of that dubbing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Especially when you hear interviews with people like Katarina McCall, who was in the Gates of Hell trilogy, and she sounds nothing like any of the 3 different actresses who dubbed her in those 3 movies. They couldn't even get the same woman to dub her, I don't think, in 3 different movies that came out within 2 years.
It's almost like complimentary for some weird reason, like audience applause on a sitcom.
Yeah.
Like, if you ever watched a sitcom without audience applause, it's like, this is weird. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, no, especially like going back and watching stuff that we all probably, I don't know about Seth's too edgy, but like Saved by the Bell, when they'd have like, Zach and Kelly. Kelly would kiss Zach on the cheek and be, woo! Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, like I'm a big fan of Red Dwarf. It's my favorite show, and they did one season where they didn't do it in front of an audience, and there's no laugh track, and it just felt so fucking weird and it just wasn't as enjoyable. And I don't like watching that season because it just feels off. Like the laugh track
that don't need it, like The Office, of course.
Yeah.
God. Seth is here, by the way. Somebody said, Seth, feel free to talk. Hey, it was Nate's segment. Seth, let's see how are you doing?
He's on a delay too, guys, so that's why.
What's up?
It took him about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
10-second delay. This is Scream.
Go figure.
Kenny and the.
We did get some comments before we really started.
It's always like the episodes like that I'm like looking forward to talking about.
I mean, this is your episode.
So we will just shut up.
Yeah, we're going to let him do his thing in just a minute.
So, of course, there's a delay.
Yeah. Just some real quick comments. And then, Seth, I'm going to play your thing, and then it's time for you to tell us what The Howling is about, okay? Because...
soul.
Seth knows who he is. He's muted. Oh, it's probably still playing for him.
It just started.
Yeah.
The thing, it didn't even pop up on my screen at
Oh
all.
my god. Well, go ahead.
This is fucking ridiculous. All right. So the Howling is about the film is about a reporter named Karen White who has had some contact with a suspected serial killer named Eddie, and she goes to meet him. Everything's arranged with the cops, and she meets him in a porn theater, and he begins to transform, I believe, and then the police find her and they shoot Eddie before he could attack her. She's traumatized by the situation, so her doctor, George Wagner, named after the director of The Wolfman, decides to send her to the place that her attacker grew up in. So that was a good move. And while she's there, she hears a howling, and there's some strange stuff happening, and she soon discovers that it's not just a werewolf, but it's a whole community of werewolves.
Yes, and fun ensues, right?
And fun ensues.
So tell us, you wanted
was
to
not
talk.
long.
You want to talk about the differences between the novel and the movie. Why don't you go ahead and do that, and then we'll get into Nate's segment, and then carry on from there.
Okay, well, there's some big differences between the book and the movie, and sometimes, understandably so, filmmakers have to kind of take liberties and make some changes for the pacing of the movie. So some of the big differences here is that Karen, her name is spelled differently. It's Karyn in the book and En in the movie. She's not a reporter. So the book opens on and her husband is named Roy. It's Karen and Roy Beatty in the book, and it's their 1 year anniversary of being married. They're planning a romantic dinner, and she's going to break the news to him that night that she's 3 months pregnant. Well, he has to go do a last minute errand for his job, and while he does that, a man named Max Quist, a convict, breaks into their condominium, rapes her, punches her in the stomach, causing a miscarriage, and that really traumatizes her naturally and affects her relationship with her husband. Now, this is the only Quist in the book. There's no relation with him to being a werewolf or anything like that. He's just a scumbag, and he gets thrown in jail for what he did to Karen. So that there's another big thing there is that there is no Eddie Quist. Marsha is in the book, but her last name is not Quist. It's Marsha Laura. So basically, at the recommendation of a therapist who, not George Wagner, not anyone connected to the town, just a suggestion that they find some place in a rural area, and so they find a home in a town called Drago. So in the book, it's called Drago. It's a village. It's not like it's not the colony. And while there, certain things happen similarly to the movie, where her husband is kind of slowly getting seduced by Marsha, and it's really accentuated in the book because of their relationship crumbling, basically because of Karen's rape. And she hears the howling, and she finds, like, her dog goes missing, and she finds the dog's severed head, and so she kind of checks out some books from a nearby town, a library about werewolves, which catches the attention of another woman named Inez, who is formerly a nun, who suspects that there's werewolves in Drago, or she suspects that there is a werewolf in Drago, and things happen. Her husband does get transformed. She finally believes that there's a werewolf when one shows up outside of their cabin. She has to shoot at it, and things like the whole village is much different and is presented in a much different way, where people seem friendly. If you never saw the movie, or if you knew nothing about the movie and you read the book, you probably fall into it. The idea where it leads you to believe that there's one werewolf, and then the twist towards the end is that there's the whole town. But those are some of the differences. I do point out quite a bit more in an article I wrote for thehorsesyndicate.com, where I go through the entire trilogy of books from Gary Brandner. They're really good books. The second and third book have never been adapted, despite what some of the credits of some of the sequels say. They have nothing in common. They're worth checking out. The first book is good, but it's really slow paced because it's all about Karen's emotional trauma, and as well as sort of like kind of building the suspense of the werewolf. So there's not a lot that happens in there. So like when they did the movie, they naturally changed some stuff around, where Karen's a reporter. You have her friends who work with her who are also investigating Eddie. And they tie in the doctor. And I kind of like the idea of the movie where it's Eddie is a werewolf from a town of werewolves who moves to a city, and he attacks people in the city, and so he's labeled as a serial killer. I kind of like that aspect of what they did there with the change, because I'm really not sure if, they probably could have done the book's opening in the movie at the time they made it, but I don't know. I think maybe they played it a little safe by just making it she's a reporter who kind of gets traumatized in a different way.
It sounds like they just took the title.
There's a lot of different. They did. Well, actually, if you watch the Howling 4, the original Nightmare, that's actually much closer to the first book. There's still some changes here and there, but the Howling 4 is actually the more faithful adaptation of the first book. And you could say that it's proof that a direct translation of Gary Brandner's first novel probably wouldn't work for film, and that's proof. But it's I hate to use that as a metric because that movie is super low budget. I feel like maybe if there was a bigger budget and better filmmakers, maybe it could have translated better directly. But I do like what Joe Dante and the screenwriters John Sayles and Terry Winkless, what they did with this. But I do kind of prefer the books.
Yeah, I'd like to see the book more faithfully adapted than what we got. I do like the Howling, but there's some things the movie I think it's very good. There's just some things I don't connect with. I know Nate said he didn't really connect with it as well.
Yeah, and another big change too is like the ending of the book. So Karen doesn't get she never gets bitten by a werewolf. In fact, actually, one thing I forgot to mention too is that towards the end, when the werewolves start attacking, her husband, as a werewolf, jumps in and kills another werewolf to save her, and then she actually prevents her friend Chris from shooting Roy. So it kind of shows that that they still love each other and they're still protecting each other. But she never gets bitten, so there's not that whole thing where she transforms. The book ends with her and Chris fleeing Drago as it's burning, and they could still hear the howling. And in the sequel novel, The Howling 2, Karen and Chris are back in it, as well as Marcia and Roy. Marcia, she got shot in the head with a silver bullet, and so it caused a streak in her hair, as well as she's not able to fully transform into her true form. She's like some sort of monstrosity, so she wants revenge against Karen, while Roy actually kind of wants to just leave Karen alone. And but Marcia kind of wears the pants in that relationship, and then there's this whole aspect where like they're tracking Karen down and stalking her, and the gypsies, they don't dare defy the werewolves, so they kind of like act like they're their ears and eyes to kind of let Marcia and Roy know where they're at. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. I definitely recommend the books. If you want the Cliff Notes version of the books, I did break them down on the website.
Yeah, check the horrorsyndicate.com. Seth did a breakdown of the 3 books, and he did a ranking of the entire film series, which I'm sure was a pain because the Howling 3 Marsupials is one of the worst films ever made. And of course, he did a ranking video on our YouTube channel, so check those out if you want to check out some more Howling madness. Before we get into Nate's segment, do you have anything else, Seth, before we do that?
I don't think we should get to my segment right away because it's kind of like towards the middle of the movie, or I don't know. We should probably just start with the, how we usually do the.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm tired.
You're not alone. Yeah, because we've got different things, and we were just kind of talking about the story a little bit. So we can talk about the story to this one and the score, the cast, and everything else that goes along with making this movie. And while the story does deviate from the book, there's some good things about the story, like the investigation of the 2 television people. The whole idea of the colony is really cool. I just watched this right before right before we were getting ready to start, so it's pretty fresh in my head. But Nate, you're the one who doesn't get around to this one as often. As far as the story goes, what are some of the things that the way you gauged it?
I really like John Sayles. He's a really good filmmaker, writer. It's kind of crazy. He was writing this and Alligator and E.T., like the Dark Skies script, the pre-E.T.
Alligator?
Script. Yeah, he was writing all 3 of those at the time, and
we can see which one got the least amount of love.
They joked that like if Joe Dante said if we ever knocked on his door, we'd hear him typing, and if he would say who is it, if we said hey it's Joe, we would hear him pull a paper out of the typewriter and put another one in because he was probably typing Alligator at the time and putting in because he was working on both scripts at the same time and they were both low budget. But one thing John Sayles, and I haven't read the book, so I can't comment on that. But the John Sayles said that he tried to handle the werewolf as the id, which is our basic animalistic. What's that?
Fuck you, dude. That's fucking not cool.
What?
That's this fucking clown. I'll be right back before I lose my tongue.
I don't know what the hell that was about. So I don't know what just happened. I wasn't reading. Anyway, the whole idea of the werewolf being the id, our primal basic needs of our pleasure centers, of where they say when Freud said when we were born that all we have is the id. We don't have our ego. We don't have so if we want to eat, we cry. We want food. We need to satisfy that craving. If we want to, whatever we need to do, sleep, whatever. So there's no reservations or being polite in society or playing by any other rules. You just satisfy it. So that plays into If I'm angry, I will kill. If I'm hungry, I will eat. If I want to have sex, I will have sex. I will do whatever I need to do. And the werewolf does fit that. And so, the whole situation with the doctor trying to domesticate or like make it to where they can live in society and get along with society instead of being outsiders and hiding what they are, or being primal. And the whole colony thing, this is 2 years. I don't know when the book came out, but the film is like 2 years after the Jonestown thing happened with Jim Jones. And that cult, that whole leaving society to better yourselves, to get away from society, it echoes this. But at the same time, while they were trying to make a paradise in Jonestown, there was still drugs and violence, and they were carrying machine guns, and Jim Jones was sleeping with the women, and all those primal id things were going on there too. And of course, we know that it ended with murder and mass suicide. And so I think that was a cool direction for them to take it in. I guess that didn't have anything to do with the books, because you said there was no colony, it was a town. And I do, and then there's a commentary of how violent things are, like Eddie Quist being a serial killer. He's able to be a werewolf in the city because the city's LA is full of murders all the time, so people are just overlooking it. And even at the end, when Karen, they're attempting to expose the werewolf, show the world, hey, this is happening, all this horrible things happening. The people watching are just kind of like indifferent about it, like, oh, same shit every day, or it's fake, it's special effects. So, whereas people used to be terrified of vampires and werewolves and the undead and the supernatural and witches, in our modern society, those things are just myth and bullshit and fake and stories. And even though here they find out that it's true, I like the whole idea of, like, even in the face of like showing it and exposing it, people just say, there's a woman on TV turned into a werewolf. No one just really, it's probably just special effects.
Yeah, in the bar is the best part.
Yeah,
you must be loaded, or whatever he says.
So I like those elements of the film.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
Just to answer your question, Nate.
Go.
I'm sorry. The first book was released in 1977.
Okay, so it's before Jonestown. So.
Well, Jonestown was still happening at that time anyway.
It was happening, but the suicide, the aftermath of Jonestown.
Yeah,
I think it was 1978, I believe.
What a scary thing. And by the way, there's a movie that Ty West made called The Sacrament that is kind of based on the Jonestown situation. Check it out. It's actually an excellent film. Kind of, there's one for you. So, this person, Seth? Anyway.
Also, watching Powers Booth play Jim
I guess
Jones.
I gotta shut the fuck up.
Probably because you weren't saying much. I don't know. Anyway, go ahead, Nate.
Huh?
What were you saying about Powers Booth?
Oh, the Powers Booth playing Jim Jones and the Guyana. What's it called? It's one of the Guyana tragedy movie or something. I think I saw it. I have it on DVD, but I could have swore I just saw it on like Tubi. So if you haven't seen that, that's really excellent movie.
It's funny, on the newscast they mentioned the Jonestown thing in the Howling. I don't know if you caught that or not.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look up Powers Booth. I actually love that actor, even though he's gone now. But now, Seth, what about you? Compared to a movie, which one do you prefer, the book or the story from the movie?
It's tough to say because I like the movie a lot. It's my second favorite werewolf movie of all time. And I like some of the changes they made. And of course, I saw the Howling way before I've read the book. But I do like the book. It is very slow paced, but it's one that I've read quite a few times, and so it's tough to say. I like them both equally. I kind of like a little bit of the atmosphere from the book a little bit better, but story wise, yeah, I don't know. Guess cop out answer.
The Guyana tragedy, the story of Jim Jones, is with Powers Booth is from 1980 television film. Yeah, I'm like Nate. I've never read the book, but there are things I like about the story in the movie. I'm not wild about the opening of the movie.
Yeah.
You know, I hearing what you said, I think that would be more kind of a gripping. I mean, it's a tragedy. The you know, she had so many problems with or I guess PTSD with what happened with Quist, not knowing what was going to happen, and he gets shot. I don't know. I guess that could really mess somebody up, but it doesn't seem as tragic as getting punched in the stomach a bunch or beaten by, you know, a rapist. So,
well, yeah, too. Well, not to mention too, because they kept they kept that one storyline going with the relationship crumbling, and where in the book it made sense because she was attacked and raped, where in the movie, I mean, she was just traumatized.
She was just traumatized. Yeah, I mean, just is not the right word.
You know, but they still had that, you know, where she can't get intimate. Like it almost seemed like she was raped, but then again, I think they did it smart because they had it in a porn booth, and you had like a snuff film playing that she was forced to watch. So
well,
I guess
they did do the flashbacks. They did do the flashbacks with that stuff,
but
too,
I think the book version made a little more sense.
Yeah, but yeah, overall, I enjoy the story. I really like the end of this movie though, where they get them all trapped into the one place, and the guy's like, "Oh, I got silver bullets," and they're like, "Oh, bullshit!" He shoots one guy. Plus, also, we got Slim Pickens is in the fucking movie. You know, Slim Pickens. You gotta love Slim Pickens.
Yeah, the addition of the porn shop was really great because we kind of get the idea that Karen liked Dee Wallace in reality. Dee Wallace said she was a lot like that because she's from Kansas. And she's like, but there's something about sexual repression and just repression in general, and the werewolves have no repression. Like or I mean, in the colony, they're being repressed to be who they are. And Karen is repressed from you know. So when she's in this atmosphere, you know, Eddie Quist is completely engaged in his every desire and every need and every want, sexually, violently, and he's kind of saying like, "Come with me, I'll open up your world, I'll light you up, baby. Like I will like release you from the prison you're in. This fear that you're living in of, you know, being so uncomfortable in this primal thing." I mean, like I said, they're watching kind of instead of her being raped, she's watching a rape basically on screen because it's not a willing porno. It's one of the rape based pornos. So instead of it happening to her,
yes,
you know, she's witnessing it. So, and it's what's on screen is really just Eddie Quist's desires being played out in front of him, and he's showing. So I kind of like that route instead of just seeing, you know, and maybe we wouldn't have gotten Dee to do that movie if she had been the victim, because it didn't seem like Dee was totally into. Again, she said, I'm. You know, I think when she said there's a story where she entered the farm or the barn at the end, and they had all these naked actors, all these naked women with their breasts out because that was an original direction. And she said, "No, I ain't doing this. I'm from Kansas, you know." And the producer came hauling ass up to the set and slammed the door, and she thought, "Oh shit, I'm gonna get it," because it was her fault. She wouldn't do it. And the producer comes marching in. He looks and sees all the people standing there naked and goes, "She's right. It's stupid. Don't do it." So
Well, they didn't set those people up anyway. There, I mean, most
Yeah.
of the people in the colony were men. There was only maybe 2 or 3 women there, so
Yeah,
that
we just
would
get to
make
see
sense.
like freaking the guy from Avengers and what's his name? Noble. I can't remember the old guy. I'm gonna do some bitch. Yeah, we can see them all nude, and even like
No.
Banks. I mean, she does a nude scene. Apparently, she didn't know that they were going to film her fully frontal. They told her she would be hidden behind the smoke and the fire and all that. So she was kind of upset that she was so exposed because she was apparently religious and was already apprehensive about the nudity.
By the way, today is her birthday. Apparently, unfortunately, she passed away in like 1997, but she had brain cancer. It's a shame. So anyway, yeah, I will say one thing. It's cool that you can read the book and read and watch the movie, and you get 2 completely different experiences. Now, in the book, Seth, let's talk about the cast. Is Dee Wallace appropriately cast, or is what do you think?
Yeah, I would say so, because like when I read the book, I visualize her as Karen, even though it's a totally different character. You know, she's not she's not quite a housewife, but like she's just an average woman. But I always visualize Dee Wallace when I read the book.
Okay, yeah, and plus her husband. Were they married at the time?
They were engaged at
They
the
were
time.
engaged.
Yeah.
Her husband plays her husband.
Yeah, apparently, like they didn't want them to know that was her husband. So she just hey, there's this actor, and he went in and read on his own without any like connection. And she said when he got the part, they called up to let him know, and she answered the phone. They said, "Oh, I must have dialed the wrong number. I'm trying to get hold of And she said, "No, you called the right place." She goes, "Oh no, you guys aren't dating." She goes, "Well, we're engaged." She's like, "Oh my god, you're gonna beat up on me. We can't have that."
I wonder how it made her feel, like where she was during the sex scene.
She said she was drinking.
She must have been.
He asked her, he goes, "Where are you going to be when we shoot that scene?"
Yeah. Let me get my fiance a job where he has this intense sex scene with a beautiful woman, and they're like, and a very animalistic sex scene.
Yeah.
Always looks like Seth wants to say something, but I can't tell because of the delay.
Yeah. And we're going to talk over him when he starts talking.
Yeah. What do you want to say about the sex scene, Seth? I know you love it. I know you're not allowed to talk about it, but
it's a scene.
It's hot, right? Because there's a fire there.
I wish it was all animated.
Who do you think was more mad? Who played Sturba in the second one?
That part at the end, yeah, that's a little rough.
All right. So, next thing I want to get into is just real fast the score. I didn't. That's another one where I barely noticed it.
You barely noticed it?
Yeah,
so
I don't.
Loud and shot like boom, like all that.
Yeah,
like organ and everything.
I don't know. I didn't notice it. Seth is the big score guy. I know you enjoy a good score. I noticed it. I don't know. This one I didn't really even notice it.
I'm not a big fan of the score. It's just so, and I don't even know if Joe was, because Joe said something in the making of that sounded like maybe he wasn't, or maybe he was just. It was either he respected the composer, or he didn't like it. But because he said something like, "When this guy does your music," because he recorded it in Italy, and it was just delivered, and it's a low budget movie, so there's like, you just take what you get, and he kind of said like, you just use what they give you, and I kind of felt like, is he saying that because he respects them, or is he saying it because he didn't like it? But hey, that's what he gave us, so we had to put it in the movie. But I don't know. It just gives the movie a weird classical feel, but the movie is so it's dealing with like modern time in some ways, like the time in LA. It looks like, Taxi Driver or something.
Yeah, early
As
on,
far as this,
especially.
yeah, but like this, it's got this old Oregon melodrama, like TV show horror movie thing sound or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Pino Donaggio, I guess is how you say it. Which he's done a lot of stuff because Don't Look Now isn't.
Yeah,
He's done Dress to Kill, The Black Cat, which is a Fulci movie.
he's done a lot
Uh,
of De
Blowout,
Palma,
which
right?
you're a fan of. Beyond the Door.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them on here that I'm looking at. Body Double, another De Palma movie. He did 3 De
a
Palma
lot of
movies.
De Palma stuff, and I just don't know if he fits Dante. I think that may be what it is, because Dante's just got this very unique voice, and I don't know.
Oh, Two Evil Eyes. That's a Romero Argento piece.
Yeah.
Raising Cain. That's another De Palma. Jesus. Yeah, I don't know. Seth, what about you? What did you think of the score?
It's hit and miss for me. I like some of it when, especially when it deals with Karen's trauma. There's that really weird, whatever.
Mhm.
I kind of like that, but like, other than that, it does kind of feel generic in places. I do kind of wish perhaps someone else could have composed it.
So what I mean by I didn't even notice it, it was because there's nothing that stands out for it. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Like,
yeah.
it like with movies like The Exorcist or Halloween. There's pieces that just stand out that set it for away from anything else. This, just as Seth was saying, is kind of just there.
It's
That's
there,
why.
and at
Yeah.
times it just kind of makes me go, I don't like that. It's like biting into a bad burger. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, there was one part that just totally didn't fit. I can't remember where it was, but it was like I think they were getting ready to go hunting or something like that, and it was just kind of hillbilly-ish.
Oh, where the tracker starts going off.
Yeah, there was
Oh,
like
you don't
a
need a
circus
bloodhound.
music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was weird. Yeah, but yeah, the music just didn't really hit for me. Next one we'll get into, and we'll get into your segment, Nate, is the which I thought was good. The direction and cinematography were both really good in this movie. I mean, you get Joe Dante right away. Who was the cinematographer?
I'm not sure who shot this.
Seth probably knows.
Yeah.
He's on a 6-second delay. I counted. It's Joe Hora. I'm not sure who that is. He's done Burying the X. No, that's what he's been in. Huh. That's a good movie, by the way. We talked about it last week. Another Joe Dante. Seth, do you know who did the? You know anything about this guy?
I don't. I just I saw the name before. I saw the name tonight, and I was going to remember it, but it slipped my mind. I don't know who it is, but I really like. I like a lot of the way this movie is shot. I think actually probably one of my favorite sequences is when they first bring Karen into the barn at the end. There's like very low angle shots, and like the camera kind of moves weird. And I think I mean, I think it's beautifully shot. I love that scene where Eddie confronts Chris in Doc's office.
Yeah,
well
calls him Bright Boy. So
and there's some things that Joe said about it. Like he said, if a movie's not going to use color, because this movie's very colorful, he goes, if a movie's not going to be used the color, then it might as well be black and white in his book. So a lot of Joe's movies are very colorful.
Mm-hmm.
And the Howling is the colors, the lighting. Like when I did the cover, I had to have that backlit woods with the fog, because we get that a lot in the film. And the cinematographer talked about that in the making. He goes, I just put a lot of lights back there and fogged it up. We had the grips that everybody running through there with all the fog machines, which takes a lot of fog, a lot of time to fog up that big of an area in the woods. Trust me, I've done it. It's like frustrating if you
love
don't
that
have
art.
shitloads of fog. Yeah, it's a good imagery and the use of shadow and you needed the shadow because it was a very low budget movie and they didn't really have the budget for the effects. In fact, I'm going to talk about that in my segment about what Joe had to do. But I'll let Seth, I mean, we're on the display, but I do have, since you're talking about directors, I was going to say some stuff about Dante.
I will say this cinematographer also did Twilight Zone, Gremlins 2, and The Explorers, and Michael Jackson's Moonwalker.
A lot of Joe Dante.
Yeah.
I need to get Moonwalker. I need to buy that movie.
Where can you get it? Because I'd love to have that.
I think it's on Amazon.
No, I love that movie. What were we going to say before you said something about Seth? Seth, do you want to get into this? Because Nate's got his segment coming up, and I'm looking to see if Moonwalker is on Prime.
I mean, Speed Demon.
Get into what?
The direction and the cinematography. Because I know you gave an example, but
yeah, I mean, I think I said my piece on it. I think it looks really good. I like a lot of the way it's shot. Yeah, I dig it. I've always liked Dante. I mean, of course, one of the first movies I ever saw of his is Gremlins, and that's a beautifully shot film as well.
Yeah,
and I think Dante's a good director. Yeah, and he, like I love the way he shot the werewolves too.
I do too. There's a couple. I had a couple of screenshots. One of them Nate actually pulled up with his, and it's this scene that we'll talk about in a second. But I like this shot quite a bit of her jumping out, like how dark everything is, and she's jumping into the light. I know that's part of your segment. We'll get to that, but the werewolves. I think the werewolves look great in this movie. I've always liked the are they called bipedal or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those type of werewolves, but even I don't have the better image of this, but yeah, I love the way look at that's a great looking shot right there.
I don't think the legs worked too well. They don't look like there's any weight above them.
Yeah, but, I saw some behind the scenes images of them building it in their garage, and it had like this pole up its ass. So yeah, I'm assuming it didn't work very well.
But they did what they had to do at the time.
Yeah,
I still prefer that over CGI werewolf.
I agree. Do you want to do your segment?
Yeah, sure.
It's been a bit. Set the scene up.
Huh?
Set the scene up.
Set the scene up. Well, I was going to talk about Joe for starters. Yeah, I do like Joe Dante. I think he is a really great filmmaker. Joe, he was an artist. So I have some similarities to him. He was an artist. He liked to draw. He used to draw comic books, and he started drawing stills for movies. He would see movies and he would make his own, but they were really just, he said, I would just rip them off from movies I liked. And he used to take drawings and he'd tape them together, and then through a shoebox, he would like he would roll them up like a reel, and he would play them for his little brother. He goes, I made about 20 or 30 of those. So, at a very young age, he was learning to think in moving pictures or sequential images and in editing. And that's where he started, in editing. And he got a job with Roger Corman at New World cutting trailers in the mid 70s is where he started.
Corman's in this.
Yeah, Roger Corman's in it. We got a lot of cameos with Roger Corman, which is an homage to Rosemary's Baby, where she's in the phone booth and William Castle's behind her. And then you got Forrest Ackerman and Dick Miller and a lot of other people. I saw Warren I can't remember the guy from Warren Publishing was listed. I don't know if he's in the movie or not. And a lot of people, I think Seth pointed out, are named after people who directed werewolf films in the movie. The characters are. But Joe, he liked drawing, but he really said he wanted more. He wanted a visual, like film, and he really liked films. When he was little, he had polio, and he lost like a whole year. So he said he goes, I think there's something for kids who are isolated or alone for a long period of time in their youth. They become you have to feel your own imagination, and your mind goes, and you read, and you invest in art and comics and books, and he did all of that. He said he really loved reading. He was a big Matheson and Bloch fan, and actually got like a failing grade in school because he wrote an essay about a Robert Bloch book, and it wasn't because it was bad; it was because it was Robert Bloch's work. And but he said, Scorsese had asthma, and he couldn't go out and play all the time. He had to stay in sometimes because of the asthma. He goes, so I think there's something in that. And it's funny that, Dante and Scorsese, but also like Tarantino, like Joe is also known to be like those two. Like they know everything about film. They know all kinds of films. Joe is that same way. Anyone who talks about Joe Dante said this guy has an encyclopedia brain for cinema and films. And he loves everything. He became a genre filmmaker, but he said, I would be making Westerns if they still made them. He would love to make everything. So that's where he started. He started in trailers and editing trailers. And that is really where Joe Dante is good in this segment, which I got all these steals, but it doesn't really service it because you have to see it in sequential order. You have to watch the scene. Hopefully everyone who's listening has seen the scene. It's the scene where she's attacked in the cabin by the werewolf.
It's about 45 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, and it's only like a minute long of what I'm doing, or even less than that, but it's about 30 shots. But it's really well edited. And the reason I wanted to talk about this sequence is I did a werewolf kind of film recently, and some of the same things that Joe faced on the Howling, because they didn't have a big budget. Rob Bottin was doing the makeup effects. He said, but when they shot most of this movie, they did not have a werewolf. They had hands and they had a puppet head. And so they were getting creative with the shots. And basically, there's like shots where you see the door being banged around, and there's no werewolf there. It's banging and her reactions, and then like just little things like the door getting banged and a piece of wood falling off the door, and then him busting through. Or there's one where she goes into the other room, closes the door, and just as the other door starts to open, but before we see anything, it cuts back to her. And he's doing all this really good editing to hide the wolf, but keep the energy going, keep the momentum going, and the tension. So, I mean, we shouldn't even show these damn shots because you really have to see it in order. But the thing about that is, anyone who asks what a director needs to know to be a better director, I've always said editing is everything. And Joe Dante has said that. Like, if you are an editor, it may not make you because usually editors become good filmmakers. He goes, not all the time, but most of the time, if not great filmmakers, they're efficient filmmakers. What it does is when you're an editor, you know what you need and what you don't need.
Mm.
And, Samuel Jackson's even talked about that. He goes, a lot of directors, new directors, they don't know as much as the actors or the crew do. He goes, and he goes, I'll be sitting on a set and I'll see a director grabbing this shot and that shot. And I'm like, man, you ain't going to use that fucking shot. Why are we doing this? Why are we wasting our time getting that shot? It's not going to be used. Right. Because Sam Jackson knows about filmmaking and knows what's needed and what's not. And a lot of young filmmakers like, well, I got to get all this, or they don't get enough. And I've heard editor stories, where they turn in a film and they're like, I need this shot or I need that shot. So if you're an editor, you can see the film in your head, and so when I make a film, I've already edited the movie. So I go in to the set knowing what I need and what I don't need and making sure I get what I need to get. And so in that scene, it's just the whole movie is very well edited. and I don't know if Joe edited the film. I think he had an editor on the film, but I'm sure he sat in with the editor. And but going back to the werewolf
He
thing,
did.
they didn't have they didn't have the werewolf completed, so they went outside and said, "Hey, look, this works, but we really could use some extra budget to have a full werewolf." And so they did. They went and found money. They were given, I think he said, like $500,000 or something more, and they were able to have the full werewolf. But you never see a full body werewolf. And he goes, and even then, we only had one werewolf. So like at the end, they're in the car, and all these werewolves are like if there's only one werewolf, there's no multiple werewolves, but it's all in the editing and how you shoot and what shots you get. And so the reason I was like comparing it to what I had to do is I had 2 monster scenes in my movie, and I didn't have a monster when I started filming these scenes. I shot the scenes I could get, the shots I could get, and sometimes it was months different, or even a year later. And some of the shots in the Howling are tight in the transformations and the werewolf scenes because they were shot when they didn't have the set anymore. They were shot on low budget, so they're actually like probably shot in like Joe's house or garage or some other place, but you just match the lighting and you get what you need and you're able to insert. So I had to edit my monster scenes very much that way because I was shooting it during COVID. So I had an actor who couldn't be there because they had COVID, and so I only had one actor. So I would shoot a scene that had 3 actors and a monster or whatever, but I would get this actor, that I would get the shots and then I'd had to know the whole scene and how I'm going to cut it to get those shots. And so it was fun to hear that Joe had to do that, where he's like, I shot this then because we didn't have a monster, or we only had hands here, so we shot this scene, and then went back later and filled in the dots to make it stronger. And sometimes that's really something you may face. We were sculpting the monster, and we were waiting for all that while we needed to shoot, so we shot what we could. So there's days where the actor is playing the monster, he just has hands, and the other part, and it's the actors responding, or you have a double, you have an actor like in that scene where she's being attacked, it's not always her, it's a double with her hands where she's got the axe and she's being grabbed, and it's somebody else.
And here's an example of that too, is just the hand.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it also was on Dante's budget, money too. Like he would just spend his own money to get extra shots to just make the movie stronger. And being the editor that he is, and with the experience he had, he just knows how to make those things work. And those scenes are really good.
Seth disappeared. Yeah, and I mean, you can't say that even throughout most of this movie, the editing is pretty damn tight. And after I saw these images, because I saw the images this morning when I woke up, and I'm like, what, 37?
Yeah.
And I had to make the
in a row.
And then and then after I watched the movie, then put them on here, and I rewatched the scene after I watched the movie on while I'm putting them up on here. And I'm watching how tight that scene is, because it's available on the Howling's available on Shudder.
It's like boom, boom.
Yeah, it is.
The cuts are really like, and it's, but that it worked because of that, all those cuts and the different angles he was able to grab. I mean, I kind of would like to see.
It all takes place in almost one room and then out the window, really.
Yeah, it's one room, and then she goes to the other, and then she's out the window, and then it's in that little nook, and he's using this, and he's got the mirror there, using that well.
We saw this in another movie that you broke down, where you could see the person in the mirror with the mirror looking back at them. I can't remember which movie it was.
Yeah, it's a great tool, especially if you've got people talking to each other, because you want to see the actors' faces as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So the mirror is very helpful. So you can have, an actor. Let's say it's an actor sitting at a mirror, putting on makeup, brushing their hair or whatever, and they've got their back to the other actor, and the other actor's behind them. You could shoot into the mirror, and you could see both actors You could see the shoulder of the actor talking
Mhm.
behind them. You could see over their shoulder, and then you could see their faces in the mirrors. And I think it was Pearl. There's a scene in Pearl where they used the mirror to show her when she was looking at her dad.
With her dad, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, this is another great part of this. The scene is quick, but it kind of gives you the vibe of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not as shocking.
Well, yeah, I was going to bring that up because Bob Burns, who is that his name? Robert Burns. Yeah, he's the one that did the art direction for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and he did this. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, when you watch it, you're like, oh, this is totally Texas Chainsaw Massacre stuff. What's the same guy? So he brought in Burns.
And well, the scene's very similar. You've got the girl who goes into the bone room. In this movie, it's her going into Quist's room and then getting chased out essentially by the werewolf or Leatherface. It's a very similar scene. But shot very differently too.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on in this scene. It's just with so many, you look at a scene that's a minute or two long like this, and you can't believe how many shots are in there.
And it's just his living space shows the way he's living, which is again again. He's got all this like violence and sexuality and perversion. And then just the way they live is animalistic. I mean, they're animals and they're embracing it, where the doctor's trying to have them not live like animals so that they can, maybe coexist with humanity. That show that we're not.
Did you get a chance to see the Horror's Hallowed Grounds on this by chance?
Yeah.
Sean said the room was like 6x8. It's such a small space.
Yeah,
and they did a lot with it in this shot too. That's another thing I was thinking about.
And I said there's so much of the shots are tight, but that helps with the consistency and just the being able to hide the monster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an effective scene.
It's great because you think she's safe. Also, at one point, it works on not just the director. I mean, direction standpoint, cinematography, but suspense wise, you're not sure what's coming through.
Yeah.
You're not sure where it is, and all of a sudden she's in what you think is a safe spot, and bam, here come the hands.
And I like he's the shot him busting through the boards between them, and right there he's just bam, 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 taking boards down and coming for her. And yeah, I think it's kind of the first werewolf scene, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right.
And it's effective. It's frightening.
Yeah, and she really gets put through the ringer in this scene, just because she's a Snoop, and a great homage to Star Wars.
I don't like you either.
I don't like you either. By the way, check out Horror's Hallowed Grounds on YouTube. You can see the Howling. I watched it earlier this afternoon because I love Sean. He does things that I want to do. Nate does too, actually. Mm-hmm. Nate goes around all over the country seeing all these different locations. Seth, how's that connection working for you? Still 6-second delay. Okay. Anyway, is there anything else you want to say about Dante or the scene that you broke down? I really like the shots you chose for sure.
Yeah. Only other thing I was gonna bring up was the transformation scene, which I figured we'll get to, because that's of course a big deal that Rob Bottin's work.
Yeah, because I think any good werewolf movie should have a good transformation scene, and this is probably number 2, I guess. I'm giving all the credit to American Werewolf in London, of course, but I do like this one quite a bit too. David, what's his name from the American Werewolf in London?
Naughton.
Yeah, Naughton. His reaction performance. I rewatched it again the other day because me and Seth were kind of talking about it. And I was like, oh, I love the Howling better. And there's things about it, they're so different, but his performance really sells the transformation scene as well as the effects in that.
Yeah.
So,
and it's totally lit too.
Yes, that's true.
It's complete light. Like everything's exposed in that in the American Werewolf in London. One thing I do want to mention, I thought was funny on the commentary. The commentary has Dante and Walt D and her husband and Richard Picardo, who plays Quist, and you know Picardo came from like Broadway, and so they were going through all that. And he's got all that makeup on, all that shit, and like D said, one day you walked up to me, Bob, and you said, D, I just want you to know, I've done stage work in New York. And I started laughing because it's so funny, because you think this serious Broadway actor is playing this part, and he just his insecurity is like, I just want you to know that I'm like a real actor. Like I've done shit, and now I'm sitting here with all this KY jelly and shit all over me. It kind of reminded like Robert Englund talking about how when he was playing Freddy Krueger, he goes, and I'm like sitting in the makeup chair, and here comes 20-year-old Johnny Depp and 20-year-old Heather Langenkamp, and they're getting all this beauty makeup, and their whole careers are ahead of them. And I'm 35, and I'm bit caked with KY jelly, and I'm like, fuck these kids.
Motivation.
Like, because I use that for motivation. Freddie hates youth, and he wants to destroy it.
So yeah, what are your thoughts on this overall transformation? I love it. I mean,
I like it. I'm not
the bubbling stuff.
I'm not a fan of the.
You don't like that?
The what do they call it? I'm blanking on what it's called.
Yeah, I'm blanking too, because that's why I said bubbling.
Yeah, but it's not bubbling. It's bladders.
Bladders,
where they're pumping air into it.
Yeah.
I don't like the over bladder, and it's cool, but I tell you the problem with that transformation, outside of the bladders, it goes on too long. It goes like she's standing there watching this whole thing happen, and it goes on for too long. And I felt that watching it this week. Just you're trying to be critical, because that's what our show is about, being honest about things. And I just felt like this is like some of these shots are like really lingering. And so I was listening to Joe Dante talking to Mick Garris, who has a cameo in the movie too. He's one of the people watching TV at the end. And he said that the transformation scene is too long, and he wanted to cut it down, but the distributors are like, no, we've got to have all of that. Like, so he was forced to leave that in there as long as it is, because they knew that that's what was hot, or what was going to sell the movie and be exciting for the audience to see all that glory. And it's great work, but you do want, like, the filmmakers, and even makeup artists sometimes are like, it's not supposed to be on screen forever, so it's more effective if it's slower. And I think the scene just goes, it's way too long. I don't know how long it is, but I bet it's at least a full minute. And that's a long time on screen.
I wonder if it seems like it's longer
minutes.
Also because she's sitting there watching the entire.
And that feels weird.
Because why wouldn't you run and get the hell out of there, and instead of just kind of stand there? I don't know, shock. But
I actually in shock, but it's so, luckily in American Werewolf in London, no one's standing there having to watch David go through that.
So if I had to watch him,
because he's the one going through it. He's the one who's in pain, and and we're feeling it with him. But the Howling scene, I really like the acid burn makeup more than that's why I drew on the cover, because I like the look of him in that.
It looks very metal in that makeup.
Yeah, but I feel like that transformation scene just goes on too long, and again, I think Dante feels the same way, but was kind of forced by distributors, the money people, of like, hey, that's like cutting out the, that's the money shot. We just get as much of the money shot in there as we
Plus,
can.
they needed to add 17 minutes to the runtime, so Seth, what about you? What are your thoughts on the transformation scene?
I like it. Obviously, I don't think it holds a candle to American Werewolf in London. I'm not sure about the whole bubble and pulsing thing.
The bladder
But
effect.
I think it does look good, especially when it shows the close up of his mouth, kind of, the snout coming out.
I like the hands.
So yeah, I don't. I like it. Yeah. I mean, overall, I'm a huge fan of the design of the werewolves in this.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The bladder thing to me just doesn't make much sense. Like I can see like bones and muscles moving and changing, but it's just this pulsating balloon basically, and it's like, what is happening under that skin that it just looks like balloons? It just like all this bubble, like it's like he's boiling from inside or something.
Yeah.
It's, whereas
well, werewolves are supposedly hot, right?
yeah, I guess. But Brick Baker's, you just really see that there's contortion, like stuff contorting and painful watching it happen. And
Yeah.
I just think it's more effective.
I like the transformation scene in Trick or Treat.
Yeah, that was good.
They would just rip their skin off. I think that was kind of cool. Something different, kind of sexy too, in a werewolf weird way. Anyway. All right. So, what did we not cover? Did we miss anything?
I don't know. I don't think there's much else to cover. It's a movie. I don't know. It's weird. It is a classic. It's beloved.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, you had a hard time connecting with it. I just don't find it overall. I just don't love it as much as other people do, I guess.
What? So, if you had to pick 5 best werewolf movies, would this be
It's on there? It's top 5. Yeah, it
Okay.
can't, you cannot have the Howling. But the thing is, there's just not a lot of werewolf films that are great. Like there's good ones. But like if I had to pick top 5 werewolf films, of course, American Werewolf in London and The Howling. I do love Silver Bullet, even though I shat on the filmmaking.
There's the lighting more than anything.
Yeah, I love the
yeah.
story. I think it may be my favorite werewolf story.
I can't not bring that up anymore.
No. I really like the Wolf of Snow Hollow.
I need to see that one. Yeah.
And I like Dog Soldiers.
It's a good one.
And I can't not say the Wolfman. I mean, the original Wolfman is so good. So,
you know which movie I think's underrated? The 2010 Wolfman.
And it's good. It is.
Yeah. See, Seth agrees. I knew he would.
So I would say top 5 for me would be American Werewolf in London. Number 2, I'd probably say the Wolfman, the original. And then I'd say Snow Hollow and what was the other one I said? Howling and
Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldiers. Yeah.
No love for She-Wolf of London, huh?
Nope.
Have you seen that?
I don't think so.
You should put it on your list to get to 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever it was. I want to see.
I can't think of. I mean, I don't know what else. Ginger Snaps is good. Yeah, thank you for bringing it. Silver Bullets. Silver Bullet is the other one I want. Howl was pretty good.
I've never seen Howl, but Late Phases is an absolute must for werewolf movies, in my opinion.
I don't like the werewolves. I love the guy, Nick D'Amici. Or whatever.
Nick D'Amici, yeah, he's great.
I like the story.
The werewolves look like kind of a weasel werewolf, but I do like
weird
the
to me.
Yeah.
There's something weird about the way they moved.
By the way, go ahead, keep talking. We got a score from our audience, 88%. Too high or too low?
That's about right. It's probably too low for most fans, really. It's kind of shocking. I would imagine it had been in at least 90, 92.
Seth, what do you think?
I would put it at least 90, personally. But I understand where, like, it's definitely not a movie for everybody. Yeah. I think the score of the movie itself kind of is a little off-putting. It doesn't match the movie, and maybe just some people can't get behind some of the maybe the.
I think one of the things I think one of the things that's also weird is how much of a inside joking is going on in the movie. Like winking at the audience with like Forey Ackerman like appearing and holding Famous Monsters of Filmland in his hands as he's walking around. Although Joe said he was always carrying his magazine around. Like that was just forced.
Even Dick Miller's shop there's a lot.
Dick,
He's just trying to make a buck.
I love Dick Miller's
do
scene,
too.
and actually that was Dick's favorite role. He said that
Really?
movie. Yeah, he said that was his favorite movie role, and he's done
I
like
love
100,
him in Gremlins.
150 movies. Yeah, I love him. Kentucky Harvester. But I always love. I wish his scene was still in Pulp Fiction because I love him so much.
Oh, he's supposed to be in Pulp Fiction.
He was Monster Joe. He was the auto guy where they take the car at the end. The deleted scenes on you can see the deleted scene. He was like Julius Sweeney's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene where Dick Miller shows up.
Anytime he shows up, I get a big grin on my face. I showed Helena Terminator the other day, and in the gun shop scene, of course, and I was like, "There he is." She's like, "He's in everything from the '80s." I was like, "I know." That's why we love him.
All of Joe's. I think there was almost like only one movie that Joe made before he passed, too. And he said Joe would say like, whenever I'd get a script and I'm deciding if I want to do it, like one of the big things is, all right, what part is Dick going to play? It's like, there's no part for Dick Miller. I can't do this movie.
Have you seen, by the way, this is way off topic, but looking up Joe Dante, have you seen all the projects that he either passed on or was attached to do and that never happened?
I know he was offered the Flintstones. He talked about that in that interview, and he goes, I just never liked the Flintstones.
Apparently, he was going to do Batman with John Lithgow being the Joker. And there's just so many things I like. So it's on Wikipedia, so I'm not 100% sure if it's real, but of course, Jaws 3, People Zero, as you talked about earlier.
Joe's one of those he's one of those directors who has a distinctive voice, like Tim Burton, like Guillermo del Toro. I would lump him into those guys because he's got this very unique sense of humor, like kind of a Sam Raimi as well, where his personality is on screen. Like, you kind of know when you're watching a Joe Dante movie. That's just because of his sense of humor and his pacing and his editing.
Things I like about certain directors too is they have their little hallmark, and you can tell it, like a Spielberg, like a Carpenter. Yeah.
Like my favorite movie is, I think Gremlins is probably his masterpiece, but I really love The Burbs. I think The Burbs is my favorite movie of his, and I always really loved his segment in Twilight Zone with the little kid.
Have you seen Burying the Axe? One of his newer movies with Anton Yelchin and.
I don't think I have. The last thing I saw him do was The Hole. Was it The Hole or something like that? Which was good.
But here's a couple of things I just wanted to bring up also that I have no clue how he's attached or if it's just speculation, rumor, but Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. It doesn't say what part he could have played, and then Halloween 4 Return of Michael Myers.
Well, actually, he was originally intended to do the Halloween 4 that Carpenter had. What's his face? Right. Can't remember his name. The guy that did I did the breakdown of the script on the THS site. The original script for Halloween 4, where Michael comes back like he's almost sort of like it's almost like a ghost story type deal. He was originally supposed to direct that. That's who Carpenter wanted to direct Halloween 4 with that original script, which I thought would have been great.
Yeah. That's crazy. What is the deal with this guy's like in love with you, Nate?
What's funny about that is there are so many directors and actors through history who were attached to projects that left or were replaced or just had differences. But now we hear about it all the time, and everyone immediately goes, "Movie's gonna suck," This guy was supposed to do it, and they got rid of him. Now it's going to suck. And it's
Look
like
at
that.
all the Star Wars movies.
It always fucking happened. It always happens. Like
Yeah.
the
A lot of
directors come
times
and
it's
go,
not
writers come and
publicized.
go.
Yep.
Yeah, we just didn't know about it. It wasn't so out there. But now we know everything to where, a casting choice. We know every fucking casting choice, so we're already making judgments. Oh, this new guy's going to be a shitty Superman. It's like, it always comes that when they see the fucking movie, they're like, oh, I was wrong. But they keep making the same fucking knee-jerk reactions every time. Ben Affleck as Batman, fuck that. Now I was like, oh, he's the greatest Batman ever.
This society
fans
is
are
built
just
on
weird.
knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Michael Keaton was hated.
There was a petition to get him taken off the movie way back in 1988.
Yeah, I don't see them ever like following Halloween 5 as like a failure.
Oh no!
It's like people like I want to see a follow up to Nightmare 5. It's like these movies bombed. Like they were not good. I mean, the fan like if they're gonna follow a movie, they're gonna follow the hit, which was Halloween 1, Nightmare on Elm Street 1, or Dream Warriors, or
Seth has a really great idea for a Halloween 3.
Well, I mean, I would counter though. I don't think some movies are so bad that you can't steer the ship right.
Oh, you could.
Personally, Curse of Chucky followed the worst Chucky movie ever fucking made, and I feel like Dom Mancini really righted the ship on that one. Personally,
no, you're right. I think you're right.
I think it has to do with it. I mean, Curse of Chucky was great, but was it mainstream? Like, if you're making like Blumhouse did Halloween 2018, they weren't going to follow Curse of Michael Myers. They're going to follow the first movie. They're going to follow the movies that the masses know and saw, and so the fan base might know, The Revenge of Michael Myers or Freddy's Dream Child or things like that. But the masses are like, which one was that one? Is that one where he's like the TV or like they don't know. So they're not making the movies for, just the fans.
We're making movies for money anyway.
Fans always think that they don't care about the fans. Like, no, they know the fans are going to fucking show up anyway. They make it for the people who wouldn't show up otherwise, and they're trying to sell to a new audience, not the diehards, because the diehards are buying a ticket whether they say they're not or they will. Oh, I ain't going. There was one guy who was like every day just talking about how he wasn't going to go see The Flash, and then like day 2 he's like, I went and saw The Flash. I was having a bad day. I thought I'd treat myself. I'm like, dude, you were like every adamant, fuck Ezra Miller, I'm not seeing this movie. And then you went and saw
Ezra Miller, by the way, was in the Howling. He wore that fur vest, the whole movie.
Oh,
yeah, it looks like Ezra Miller.
Don't eat what you kill. It's a sin.
Yeah. Yeah. So just wanted to let everybody know.
I think that guy should have been in The Hills Have Eyes.
He was dressed like it.
He looked like the Hills Have Eyes character.
Next week we're doing The Mist. If you've never seen that, it's a fun movie with a really heart soul crushing ending. So that's next on the agenda, and then the following week, I think it's George Romero retrospective, because I want to do something different. So there you go. Oh, wait, was that Nathan in the background back there underneath the Horror Syndicate logo there? Is that you, Nate? Is a zombie? Anyway, we've got some good stuff coming up. We've got Let the Right One In coming up at the end of the month. The 2020 Invisible Man. Got some cool stuff to talk about. And over on the Horror Movie Massacre, we're doing Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Underrated, fun film. And really, it's all about family. And one boy's dream to be called Tex.
What you call me, Tex?
They should call me Tex.
God damn it, boy! God damn it, boy! I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I love part 3.
I
think
do.
it's
I like it
extremely
quite a bit
underrated.
too. It's going to be a fun conversation, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Jamie Lloyd is loved. Daniel Harris is loved. At the same time, she's made a huge stink about Halloween not being in them.
Yeah, but yet she'll post a picture of herself on social
Yeah.
media, all in her underwear with Michael Myers behind her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I as a fan would love to see her Jamie Lloyd return. It would be exciting because I'm kind of tired of Laurie Strode.
yeah, I don't want them to erase part 6 though. I love it. I can't help it.
I just don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was like I said, Seth has a good idea for a follow up to Halloween 2 that has nothing to do with Laurie Strode, Jamie Lloyd, anybody. Just Loomis and a road movie, right? Seth, something along those lines.
Well, Jamie.
Yeah.
The Jamie Lloyd movie we should have came in 5 because part 4 was great. Part 5 wasn't.
Yeah.
And they kind of had this amazing ending for part 4.
Sorry, I had an itch for a hip scratch. So.
Like part 5 should have been. Part 5 should have been Jamie Lloyd in Smith's Grove, and Michael arriving on Halloween night to try to like break her out, and like sort of like Loomis dealing with Jamie, you know, as she's going through sort of the same motions Michael did. I don't know. Like I felt like there could have been a great follow up to Halloween 4.
We could have gotten like Rob Zombie's first hour of Halloween, but with Jamie Lloyd and Loomis. And
that would have been cool.
Yeah,
that would have been real cool. Yeah, who knows what could happen in the future?
Yes,
I honestly don't think. I don't think we're
exactly.
going to get anything like that in the future. Halloween's going to get rebooted in 2028, and that's the way it's probably going to be. Anyway, is there anything else we want to touch on before we disappear before 4th of July and blow our hands off with fireworks on Tuesday? I'm not. I'm just going to watch Independence Day.
I am not
going to do.
I don't know if I have anything else to say about the Howling. I guess it got Dee Wallace a job in ET. Yeah.
Absolutely not. H2O is the worst. Seth, what were you going to say? I also cut you off. Sorry, Nate. I can't abide by the John Tate stuff. No.
No, I was just saying, the good thing about the Howling is it got Dee Wallace a part in E.T. and Joe Dante the job on Gremlins, I guess.
Well, after the Howling, man, Dee Wallace had a pretty nice career in the 80s in horror. I mean,
I adore her so much.
I do too, man.
I think she's
so
great.
Let's do the list. You got Cujo, you got Critters. I mean, she became the mom. E.T., as you said. Mom of the 80s, really. She's in so many good movies and horror movies. She was the mom in Rob Zombie's Halloween, the Strode mom.
She's such a lovable person on screen and off screen. Like every time I've met her, she's just like the nicest person in the world.
Yeah, she's on my list. I'd love to meet her for sure. Seth, do you have anything you want to say about the Howling before we move on?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I've had really shitty connection tonight. I missed the majority of what Nate was saying for his segment. Yeah, so I'm gonna go through and I'll listen to this tomorrow because I'm curious about what, especially Nate breaking down his segment. So unfortunately, this episode did not go the way I wanted, but I love the Howling. Obviously, I'm wearing a Howling shirt. I own the 3 books. I'm not ashamed to admit that I love the franchise, flaws and all. I think the Howling is it's the second best werewolf movie of all time. And I'm glad that we covered it, even though I had a shitty connection and I had a delay. And yeah, so thanks.
Thanks, Internet.
I did want to mention one thing. Our friend, I don't want to mispronounce his name, but Jorhan Walsh mentioned Big Bad Wolf. That's a good one. I like it too. I don't think that's going to be for everybody. It does have a cameo from David Naughton in it, and the werewolf is sort of like a sadistic Freddy Krueger type, and the bad guy from Kindergarten Cop is in it. So check that one out if you can.
Crisp?
I don't remember who the bad guy was.
Yeah, Crisp. That's all I remember. I saw it the other night with Helena. I've been going through all these Arnold movies with Helena lately. So
I haven't seen that since it came out, probably.
Dude, rewatch it. It's worth it.
Let's see who was the villain.
All I know is his name was Crisp.
Richard Tyson. Yeah,
he has a ponytail and shit.
Yeah, he was kind of hot for a minute.
Yep.
All right. Shit. Well, remember next week on Wednesday. What's wrong with me? I'm a bad host. That's what it is. I'm number 3. We're doing the Leatherface, and we'll have our slash scores and all that stuff ready for that show. And then on Sunday, come back for The Mist. Are you guys ready to talk about The Mist? I love The Mist. How do you guys feel about The Mist?
It's my favorite Stephen King short story, and I love Frank Darabont. So
you like the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to watch the black and white version.
I was gonna say I've never seen the black and white version, so
that's the only way to watch it.
Really, I don't know if I have a way to watch it because I know they had the Blu-ray a couple years ago.
It's on. I mean, they released it with both.
Well, I have the original DVD that came out in 2007 or whatever, so I don't know if it's on there or not. But then of course we've got the George Romero retrospective.
Is that going to be about all of his movies?
Well, it's his birthday, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're just gonna kind of go through his career like we did with Craven last year.
Okay.
We'll do one of these once a year, maybe.
I gotta get back to watching some of them.
You've
some
seen
of them
them all.
I haven't seen all of his movies. Like I haven't seen There's Always Vanilla.
Yeah, I've never seen that one.
And I think there's a couple others, but I've seen the bulk. Yeah, definitely. But some of them I've only seen once. Like I've only seen Martin once. I have it. I've only seen The Crazies once. I've only seen Night Riders once.
Yeah, I'd like to watch The Crazies again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you had to pick a favorite Romero film right now, what would you pick? Both of you.
Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Crazies.
Really? I actually thought you were going to say Martin.
The Crazies.
I thought you were going to say Martin.
I fucking love it. I love Martin as well, but the Crazies, I fucking hands down love the Crazies. But Martin is fantastic as well, and so is Night, Dawn, Day, Land. Night Riders is fun.
Yeah. Yes. So anybody who does not own a copy of The Howling on Blu-ray,
Bruiser was okay.
Bruiser. I haven't seen that since it came
I've never
out.
seen Bruiser. And what's the one they put on the carnival? Not the carnival. What was it called?
The amusement park.
The amusement park.
I need to buy that. I love that one.
Yeah, George Romero has such a great and long career, and I just feel like we need to,
I've never seen Season of the Witch either.
Oh, that's another one. Yeah, there's Arrow did a 3 or 4 pack a couple years ago with 3 movies that were not his Dead movies, and the vanilla one.
Have you guys seen The Dark Half?
Yeah.
I have not, and I haven't, and you're gonna hold that over my head forever.
I think I saw Dark Half in theater.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Really?
I know
That's
Seth
cool.
wants to talk about that, and sometimes they come back. Is that the other one?
Needful Things.
Needful Things.
Needful Things
yeah.
in The Dark Half have a character that crosses over between each story.
Ray Nicolette.
Sheriff Alan Pangborn.
Well, we'll get to those eventually. We've got a lot on the docket, especially coming up.
I gotta start watching Romero movies right now.
I mean, you're probably in the mood, right?
Yeah, I got Papa Ben.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. I need to track down a few of them, but we're gonna probably just do what we did with Wes Craven last year, which is start from A and go through the end of his career, which I'm not sure what was his last movie. Was it? It wasn't Survival of the Dead, was it?
Well, I think it was.
Survival.
Nah, what a shame.
Yeah.
That one wasn't that great.
Oh.
I got a sneak preview for that one. And I was like, I wish I wouldn't have. I got more like a sleep preview. Oh. Anyway, George was a master. So next week, The Mist. Wednesday, Leatherface. And we will see you all next week with another show for the Horror Syndicate Discourse. Have a great 4th of July. Have a safe 4th of July. You guys have a safe 4th of July. I want to see 10 fingers or, 8 fingers and 2 thumbs.
I'm a fucking artist, man. I can't lose this shit.
That's
I'm not
true.
working in no meat department. I ain't lighting no fireworks. Ain't the shit.
Seth, you can go at any time.
Just remember, whatever happens, don't name it after me. 4th of July weekend, buddy boy.
Return of the Living Dead. All right, we'll see you next week, guys. Have a great